you. Hi, everyone. I realise this is a bit weird with like not huge numbers and we're sitting in this setting. I want this to be really relaxed and chatty, so I've left time at the end for questions, but if there's time throughout, then do chip in, please. That's better for me. So I'm Becky, I'm from Bedfordshire, all the way over, but not as far as Matt was from. I'm 5% Welsh. It's very strong. My mum always knew we were a little bit Welsh, and she said Welsh blood is very potent, so you only need a little bit. And then it turns out that actually I got as much Welsh blood from my dad as my mum to make up the 5%. There we go, that's that. So I used to be a teacher. I always say that first because it sounds like I had a real job once and did something normal. I've got 2 children, aged almost 12 and almost 9, so we've just started secondary school. That's an experience, isn't it? 3 days in, not sure I can cope. I live with my husband and my 2 kids, and I now lead the resources cupboard. Angela is one of my chair of trustees. Still acting, but we might just scrub that word from the So we exist to resource the local church to make young disciples. That's our tagline. We're all about supporting local churches in their work with children, young people and families. So back in Bedford, that looks like doing some hand-holding and walking alongside churches. Nationally, it looks like putting a bunch of free resources on our website. Who doesn't love a free resource? So get yourself signed up, and that collection is growing there. So today I'm here so I met Rachel at the Godly Clay training at St Paddens. I did my MA there. Yes, I am about to start a PhD. Not at St Paddens, but that's the way. No, clap afterwards. There's a long way to go. Met Rachel there talking about my experience of working with children and young people, and that's how I've ended up talking about this topic today, because I absolutely do not profess, claim or otherwise to be an expert in this field, but I'm someone who's got some experience in this field and a heart and a passion for this, so that's where I come from. And one of the things I'm going to do today is signpost a bunch of people who have a lot more experience and expertise and can help you a lot more clearly. So, my background, I grew up in a Christian family. We went to Spring Harvest as a child. When I was 8, I remember being in this. It was my first experience of seeing people with disabilities, people who looked different. And at that point in time, there were people with quite profound and serious disabilities that I was seeing. I thought, this is different. I haven't seen this before. And I really felt at the age of 8 that God told me one day I'd work with children with special needs. I don't remember the wording I heard there. I only remembered this thing when, in my early 20, about 20-ish, I volunteered on the 8th to 11th team, so same venue, and I'd been placed as a one-to-one with a girl with additional needs, and it was like God saying, I told you, and this is it. This is what I told you was going to happen. And I felt very unprepared at that moment in time, but something that God's been working in my own life. Within my own family, my household can best be described as incredibly neurodiverse. We've got it all going on. It's when it's going well, it's amazing. When it's not, it is not. And we've got every bit of neurodiversity represented in our household. Yep. That's all I need to say on that. But within my own family, I've had experience of different disabilities as well. So I myself am hearing impaired. Small d deaf would be how we describe that. You can tell that by the fact that I'm not wearing my hearing aid, but I always remember when I get into a room like this that I should actually wear. So if I can't hear you, that's why, please let me know. What I'm really, really good at is answering the question I thought I was asked. And then realising from the expression, that's not what they said. So bear with. But I think it's just that God's done something in my life over my lifetime of experiencing this. Other things have happened. My mum had a neurological disorder which was developed and progressive and eventually terminal. And so we've had different experiences of disability and difference in our family. And some of those we would have wanted God to have healed from. I would like to be able to hear properly. That's true. We did not want my mum to go through what she went through, but we wouldn't have wanted her to go through it and then not have heaven at the end either. So that's complicated. And when I look at my children, their differences are not something that I feel God needs to heal from in them. They are who God has created them to be. So this whole area is complex. And it's not, this is the answer. And it's all about individuals' experiences and lived experiences. So standing in front of you today, I'm just telling you about my lived experience, really, and how we've walked it through. Okay? Right, so I've got 2 tables. I've done really well. I've already set the room up. So in this session, because I'm a good Baptist by background, we've got a 3-point talk, all beginning with the letter P. I've actually got a little bit before that. I've decided to do a little bit of an introduction. But we're going to look at principles behind how we approach this area. We're going to look at some practical things we can do, and we're going to finish up with pointing you to some people who really know what they're talking about and how you can go and get some extra help. So before we dive straight in, I think it's really helpful to think about what our basis is for how we approach anything as Christians and how we approach anything in our children's youth and family ministry. So actually sometimes you have to take a step back and say, what is it that God says? What is it that we believe to be true? And how does that help us to know where we stand with regards to this? And when I'm thinking about special needs and disabilities, these are 2 scriptures that I come to. Psalm 139, the whole of it. My nan chose to have this read at her funeral, I remember, and I never really knew why it was so important to her, but my mum said it was one that meant a great deal to her, so fine. But I'm falling more and more in love with this psalm all the time, and for me the line in it, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. So I had a friend who was expecting a baby at the same time as me. It was all incredibly exciting, and then we went for our scan, and I had great news, and she went for her scan, and this baby may not survive, and if they do, they're going to have really complex special needs, they're going to be disabled, all these issues. And right as we were planning our, I can't remember the dates, but Messy Church had been planned, and it was on Psalm 139, and this is kind of, do we do this now? Do we talk about how we're fearfully and wonderfully made? Because what about her baby? Is he going to survive? We said, actually, her baby is fearfully and wonderfully made, knitted together in his mother's womb. The baby is a very strong 8-year-old who's just as difficult as every other 8-year-old and just as fun as every other 8-year-old. But there was that moment where we said, do we do this? Actually, we do this because this is the truth that underpins everything that we do. And then the second thing I always remember, I love it, when blind Bartimaeus is met by Jesus, and the first thing Jesus says is, what do you want me to do for you? Not, stand back, I'm going to heal you, it's okay. Because what if Bartimaeus had wanted a roof over his head? What if Bartimaeus had wanted to know his sins were forgiven? What is it that Bartimaeus wanted in that moment? And that's the approach that we take. I've had experience of people offering to pray things out of you. It's not nice. We don't do that. But actually, as Christians, we say, what is it we can do for you? And for me, this is the point I come into this with, that we are all fearfully and wonderfully made, and every single one of the children and young people that we work with all their foibles, are fearfully and wonderfully made. And Jesus says, what can I do for you? What would you like me to do for you? Okay? Right, now it's your turn. I won't do this too often. So I did a little brain dump of all the terminology I'd come across in the last few weeks. And I don't know if you could just take a few minutes with the people around you, just to discuss what some of those mean. Any that you don't know, any that I don't know. I mean, is EHCP a thing in Wales? Yeah? Is it the same? Do you know what I mean? We have different languages. So just take a moment. We're not going to worry about all these terms. If you want me to, I can come up with the definitions at the end. But just a few minutes in where you are with your 2s and 3s, what do these terms mean? Okay, it's not a quiz. You're all right. There's no exam. Fine. Send. special educational needs and disabilities. So you sometimes get a SENCO, sometimes you get a SENDCO, including the disability as well. Inclusion, everybody in. ASC, ASD refers in the broadest sense to autism. Yeah, so either autistic spectrum, let's see, is it condition?
I think it's both conditions.
Yeah, or disorder. I don't like referring to somebody as having a disorder. Personally, I don't like that. However, I have a family member who was diagnosed as having Asperger's. They will not be told it's not Asperger's because they've been told they have Asperger's. Terminology changes over time. We won't go through all of them. Is there anything on there that you're like, I really need to know this one?
PDA, tell them what PDA out.
Pathological demand avoidance.
Oh, of course, yes. Yes, I have that.
So, yeah, it's that sense of if I'm expected that I have to do something, I can't do it.
Yeah. I'm the last one.
SEMH, social, emotional and mental health.
Oh, I think PMLD is profound.
Multiple?
Yeah.
Multiple.
Multi-disability.
Learning difficulties.
Yeah, multi-sensory or something like that. Yeah.
SEMH is the one that sometimes crosses out of somebody with additional needs into more general mental health, child trauma, those sorts of issues. Okay, my point of including these isn't that you need to know all of these. My point is that in this field you're going to hit loads and loads of different terminologies. And like I said, things change over time. I was very aware coming to Wales that you may well have different terminology to what we have. We had this conversation by email, didn't we? So actually, you may have a term that I'm not familiar with. And so I just want to say that this is a safe space today. And it's okay if we don't get the right words in here. We're not trying to be offensive to anybody. I love Channel 4's coverage of the Paralympics with the, is it okay? Is it okay to ask this? Is it okay? But we want to actually just be really open, and this is an open space so we can do that today. But also, as I said, sometimes some of the terminology that a person is given can have significant meaning to them, and we need to be mindful of that. And above anything, this is not about labels, this is about individuals. And that's the same for all our work with children, young people and families. Every child who comes to our door is a child known and loved by God, who knows their name and knows how many of the hairs there are on their head. Not, oh, they're autistic. You know that, you're in here. Right. So now you'll be relieved to know we're back on track with our 3 points. So we're going to think first about principles, because I'm just really aware that time's quite short today, and we could do an hour on how to have fridges, couldn't we? We could be really, really specific. So we're going to be really broad, and I'm hoping it will just open a few little things you may not have thought about before and give you some thoughts about where you want to go with it next. And I have hopefully got some time at the end where we can get into some specific questions as long as we're mindful of confidentiality and stuff. Okay? So, here's the principles that I think we need to adopt. So first principle, I've called this mirrors and lenses. I think when we come to this, we need to start by holding a mirror up to ourselves and saying, what has been my experience? Who am I? What do I bring to this? What's my understanding? And also, what lens do I apply to view this through? That's what we did at the beginning. I told you a little bit about my story. That's the mirror to myself, but also that's the lens that I view the world through. So just take a moment's pause on your own, just to consider, what's your story, what's your experience, how does that shape your lens on your children's youth and family ministry? Okay, the second thing I want us to think about is it's not about the expertise we bring. We can feel really inadequate. Oh, I've never helped a child with this disability before. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how best to help this family. It's not about our expertise, it's about the posture that we adopt in doing this. And it's about that openness and a willingness to learn and a willingness to be guided through this process. The third principle, I think, it's about God's radical welcome. If we're not welcoming and including people with disabilities, then we're not showing God's radical welcome. If the welcome that our churches show is limited to a particular group of people, then it's not God's welcome. Because God's welcome is for everybody. Other side of that, as a family, when we go out to places, I know when I've experienced a radical welcome and when I haven't. And so we can be the place where that family experiences that welcome. We went to the Science Museum in school holidays for a sleepover. They gave us a piece of, I can only describe it as carpet underlay to sleep on. But there were, I don't know how many children, who knows, possibly up to 500 children with additional needs and disabilities at this sleepover. And the welcome that we received, and they could be themselves all night. And they did. But we know when we go somewhere, we know what the expectation is, and if it's actually we're welcome here as who we are, or I've taken my child with me to church function and said, you just need to contain the you-ness today.
I've done that.
And it's really quite hard. And that's quite damaging as well. We don't want our children to have to contain the you-ness. We need to learn appropriate behaviours, definitely, but we want them to be themselves. So actually us showing the overwhelming welcome of God, if we're showing it, then we're showing it to everybody, and if we're not showing it to everybody, we're not showing it. And last thing, I think we need to be a safe space to explore a life-changing message. I've heard this as a safe space to explore a dangerous message, because the message of God is quite dangerous. But we have big questions, big God questions, and our children who come in will have big God questions. Why has God made me like this? Why didn't God make that better? Why are all these people being healed? If we're not a safe place so we can have really honest and robust conversations where the children can really wrestle with stuff, then I think we're failing, really. But also, in doing that, our own theology will be shaped through that. How often is it that we've worked with a child and suddenly we've discovered something incredible about God because we worked with that particular child? So our understanding of who God is will be shaped in the way that we work with these children. Okay, so there are principles. Okay, that's easy, isn't it? Yeah? We're all on board? Right. Now we get to some practicals. Okay, let me tell you a story. I'm pretty sure I was still doing my teacher training. I don't think I was a teacher. I was so confident. And I was left to run the holiday camp. It's a dangerous combination, isn't it? We're going to make sure we've got special needs covered this week, she confidently said. We're going to meet somebody at the door, we're going to have all the information, we're going to say, we've got such a huge team, we can do one-to-ones, we can do this, we've got a visual timetable, we've got it all, bells and whistles. And then in came a family who I've never seen before and I've never seen since. I don't know, they came from kind of out of area as well. It was a really strange experience, triplets. They're memorable. Do your children have any additional needs? No. Okay? I can't quite remember how many seconds it took for us to work out that all three of these children had an element of blindness, including one who was completely blind. And this parent had told us their children had no additional needs. And everything was taken away from me, like, we have not got this covered. We don't know what we're doing. How do we do this now? But I think it's really important that we ask the question, mindful that we might not always get the answer. But then what questions are we asking? So when I took my kids to Spring Harvest this year, we had to fill out a form about all of them. I thought, I've never been asked these questions before. Because there were questions about what behaviours are my children going to exhibit and what support might they therefore need. So when we're asking the question, it's not just, does this child have a disability or special need? It's, what might trigger them? Why might they be uncomfortable? How can we enable them to best access this? When is your child most happy? And I think one of the things I want to do on our website is create a form that's a template to ask some of these questions. But together with that, it's just sitting down with the parents and having a chat and talking it through. Maybe it's coming to your venue beforehand and coming in. Can you even get in the venue? Do we need to do something about that? When you are in the venue, does this work? Does that work? When we do this, is that going to work? Is that not going to work? So depending on what the child is, what the needs are, you might approach this differently. But you can always remember that you were not the one who let 3 blind triplets in your venue without realising that was the case. Oh, I'm not sure what happened there. So yeah, I think asking the right questions is really, really important. Hoping that you're going to get some answers is also quite good. Okay, then this I think is really important. Any adjustments we make in our group actually improve it for everybody? Any adjustments we make for a programme for a particular child will improve the offer we have for everybody. So one thing we've noticed is that a lot of both children and adults with various, particularly neurodiverse families, find a real home in places like Messy Church and Wild Church. Because it's not, we sit in a row, we are silent, we stand at the same time, we sit at the same time, we do not fidget. It's that movement is allowed. And so sometimes, and let's be honest, how many other children would prefer to be in a church where they could move around and we were not all sitting at the same time and standing at the same time? So those changes that we make can actually be better for everybody. I want to tell you my visual timetable story now. As a teacher, I hated a visual timetable because of my now diagnosed ADHD. I did not like the fact that I had to decide my day at the beginning of the day and declare it, because what if halfway through the day I wanted to change my mind? What if we did this activity and it went on longer? What if we wanted to do art every afternoon this week? Why did I have to stick to this? So my choice that I made then was to rarely use a visual timetable. Having my daughter, I now understand the power of a visual timetable, because it's not about not being able to make changes. So my daughter can't hold that information in her head. She can't see that, what we're going to do, and then we're going to change. Well, why are we going to change? I don't understand why we're going to change. She likes to see the information of what the day will look like, which is where a visual timetable comes in. But actually, if we were going to do that, but now we're going to do this activity instead, we can show you the change on the timetable. Oh, it's changed. I understand that now. I can picture that. So another, don't learn from Becky's mistakes. We could have just renamed the seminar. Learn from Becky's mistakes. Do not accept children that you don't. Yeah. But I think visual timetables are really powerful. I've got a free gift for you. You can woo now. So Roots have produced a set of cards for a visual timetable for churches. Do you want to take one and pass them on? This is the full set. What you've got is a sample set that you can cut out and use. If you want to have a look at these later, you can. I love how thoroughly thought out these are. So for communion, they've come up with different symbols. So we've got the bread and the wine, as you may see it in one church setting, and we've got it in a different form, as you may see it in a different church setting. We've got, what's the other one? Baptism. There's a card for baptism as an immersion or as a baby. So these are so well thought out. I'm not on commission, but honestly, I think these are absolutely brilliant. And they've sent me this set that I'm allowed to show you. No, I don't know of anybody else who's produced one of these. There is software available that you can create your own, but somebody who's gone to the trouble of making the cards specifically church-related is good news. And so you can buy them as a download, or you can buy them as a set of cards like I've got here. And if you go away and say, Becky May told us to buy them, that will get me some brownie points with Roots, and they'll keep sending me freebies. So they're really helpful to be able to see. I've got some other stuff here that I actually just asked my daughter for her box of goodies, and I thought I'd show you her box of goodies. So my daughter's been back at school 3 days, end of day 2 we were in tears. What's the matter? I was told I wasn't sitting still. Did you have your wobble cushion? No, I did not. So this is my daughter's wobble cushion. Have you come across these?
Yes, I sent that one.
They're awesome. So as an autistic person, she needs more feedback from the environment than the environment gives non-autistic people. That only makes sense if you are down that route. Basically, she can't sit on a chair because she's not getting enough feedback from her surroundings, so she's seeking more sensory stuff. A cushion like this that she sits on gives her more of that sensory fulfillment, if you like, and therefore she sits in a fairly seated way. These are great, they're from Amazon, they're fun. So that's one of her goodies. Have you come across a sunflower lanyard? Yeah, they're pretty well understood now, aren't they? Represent hidden disabilities. We've had some experience of going out and being spotted and wanted, come this way. So we like those faces. They're always good. I'm saving the best till last. This is not the best. We've also got the magic ear defenders. So my daughter can go into a school disco quite happily without ear defenders because she is expecting it to be noisy. She can't sit through a film because she's taking all that visual stuff and all the noise stuff, and it's just overwhelming. So these just dampen down one of the senses, so she's not having so much. And also, if she's just generally feeling overwhelmed, I think she needs some space to herself. We don't put these on. My niece, who's a little bit older, has got some in-ear things, so she can now sit through a meal without killing somebody. It's always a positive. So fidgets galore at my group. I did miss that vital detail out of the story. When I met Rachel, I was talking about my own group, which had been set up just as a normal midweek 8 to 11 clubs, and suddenly realised that we had at least 80% of children had additional needs. This is not a coincidence, and there are 2 factors at play. Neurodiverse people attract neurodiverse people. It's what we do. It's our special power. So there's that going on, but also if you become known as a place where children are loved and welcomed and accepted, then of course other people are going to bring their children to you. We have this at our school. Our school has good SEN provision, so we're attracting lots of children with SEN needs. That's very difficult for a school to do, and it can be difficult for a church group to manage as well. So within my group we have a box of fidgets. And other things that we do, when we put the beanbags out, we have a mixture of beanbags and floor and chairs. And so there's no expectation that everybody will sit on the same place and be happy with that. It's where are you happy and where are you comfortable being. Right, are you ready for the best? I'm not going to model. This is a body sock. I'm not modelling, I'm really not. So the idea is you step in, unfortunately it's child size, what a shame. You step in, 2 feet, 2 hands, and you can stretch. It's just like that. And it's that whole thing about being that sensory need of taking stuff from your environment as well, again. Magic. Yeah, sensory sock. Body sock. So, again, this is hers, from her bag. In terms of other equipment, within our group, one child who's hearing impaired comes with a mic that whichever leader speaking wears, for him to hear what's going on. What other things have we done before? I've had a ball with a bell inside before, because I had a child who was visually impaired, and so that sound also helps him to locate the ball. You don't have to have everything in your store cupboard. Sometimes it helps to be a step ahead of family. Sometimes they may not be bringing what you think they might need to the group. Sometimes you can pick up from the family, what is it that you use? Can we get that in? Or can we make use of yours? We don't need a mic for the child of our own, they can bring it with them. But building a bank of resources that you can use and keeping your eyes peeled is really helpful. So that's medical show and tell. Thank you very much. Right, okay. Next, practical. Give your best. Give the best that you can give. I do some messy church training sometimes, and they said, you know what, we can't do a meal. What's the best we can do? Cake and tea. So make it the best cake you can do. Give the best that you can give. But also, I didn't want to call this Know Your Limits, but I do want to say, don't overpromise. When I think back to that holiday club, we're going to have one-to-one, we're going to do this. We wouldn't have had one-to-ones for everybody if a huge group of people had come, and then everybody ends up disappointed. So know what you can give the best that you can give, but don't promise something that you can't deliver on, because then that just upsets everybody, how we do it. We're doing okay. We're only 15 minutes behind schedule. Right, here are my pointers. So here is, and if you want me to email you my slides later, I'm very happy to do that, by the way. So here's my long list of people I would go looking to for specific other things. Okay? If you're on Facebook, there is a Facebook group called the Additional Needs Alliance. It's made up of a group of people who are parents, practitioners, people working specifically in this field, people who themselves have additional needs and disabilities, and it's a great talking point place where you can get lots and lots of help and advice. Mark Arnold, who works for Urban Saints, is also on Additional Needs Alliance. He does a lot of work training, particularly around autism and ADHD. So if you want specific information on that, and he does that online, so you can go and grab that. Kay Morgan Gurr, you may have come across, she's been around a long time. She often works alongside organisations to provide feedback to them on how they can make their offer more appropriate. Through the roof! Katie's here! Thank you, Katie. And Katie's got a stall in the marketplace, so you can sign up there with you today. Brilliant, yeah, there we go. Torch Trust works to support people who are visually impaired. Christian BSL is a resource online where you can find out how to do the sign for various things. It's really helpful. And again, that whole thing about what works for one person will work for everybody. So actually, if when we're praying, we use a sign, that will not only include somebody who uses sign language. My daughter sometimes chooses to sign when she doesn't want to be verbal. My favourite one is we don't like saying sorry, but it's okay to sign it. Yeah, so that idea that actually teaching a sign can be helpful not only for somebody with a disability, but actually it can ground something that we're talking about in a more physical form. So when we've been talking about storytelling earlier, if we can introduce some signing into our stories, if we can introduce some pictures in our stories, lots of children have the visual imagination, some don't. Some need a visual stimulus or a practical stimulus, some toys, objects, fluffy cloth things, things that will make it more tangible. So Roots for Churches are behind the visual timetable. They're not an additional needs resource provider generally. They produce curriculum, but this specific resource has come from them. Messy Church have a SEND coordinator, my lovely friend Trish, who's based in Essex. She started a Messy Church specifically for families with children with disabilities and special needs in Hertfordshire. She's now running a second one in Essex. So going even further than in your Messy Church, how to include people, but one that was specifically for families where there were disabled children within those families. However, she does offer advice generally to Messy Church. So if it's our Messy Church isn't working because, then she can give you some feedback on that. Aslan produce resources for people with learning difficulties. You'll find those through Additional Needs Alliance. And Count Everyone In is an expression of a church that is a more inclusive model of church. So they're go to them because they know what they're talking about, people. Okay, Right, last bit of time, I thought we'd handle some questions. So you can be as specific as you like. Rachel will not include anything on the recording that we don't want sharing beyond this anyway. So any questions that you'd like to ask now, or any, I've done this and this really works, I've got that resource, it's brilliant. The other thing I did put on that slide and realised I forgot about working with the whole family. That can be very, very different, and you will have everything from the parent who's in total denial that there is an issue here, the parent who hasn't noticed yet, the parent who's worked it out and is actually in some kind of state of bereavement right now because they're not living the life they thought they were going to be living, the parent who has had to fight every step of the way for their child and comes in like a militant monster into your group because they are used to having to fight for their child, the sibling who is the young carer, the sibling who feels rejected, the sibling who feels overlooked, the sibling who's wonderful. You're going to have all of that. And actually, we're never, in any of our work, we're never just working with a child in our group. I'm a big believer that it's all got to be about the family. But this takes on a different level, doesn't it? So I know on Sunday, just this last Sunday at Messy Church, somebody thought, I really, really need to get alongside that family because she hasn't even noticed that this is going on. And how can I support her versus the other parent who's kind of, it's okay. So you're going to have all of those experiences, but it's always about the one, isn't it? It's always about the one.
I think so. That concept of rejection.
Yeah, I would go back a bit, and what is the reason that family has come to you? And is it that they find a home with you, and therefore what can we do for them? And I think you have to walk that one really, really gently, don't you? Because there is the worry that you will be rejecting. If it's that they've shown up because, well, we've never been to church, but this church is here. Actually, I know that we don't offer great things for you. If you're looking for something else, this church is also available. But we love having you here, and if we can better do that, yeah, that's a really gentle one. But I would start with, why are they with you? Why have they chosen to be there? So we have a few families. We're a smaller church. We have a few families who choose to come because we're smaller and quieter. That's deliberate. There's loads more families at that big church, but that's not going to work for our family. Yeah. I think I just want to finish by saying, so I know in my family we are very, very neurodiverse. At the moment, neurodiversity is a thing that's getting an awful lot of attention, especially coming out of lockdowns. We've got delays of people who weren't diagnosed. We've got people who it's become obvious that there's something else going on because of coming out of lockdowns. We've also therefore got generations of families who are figuring out that they're all on the spectrum and all that stuff. I'm living it. So we've got all of that going on, but that's not the only way there is to be disabled. And if we put all our attention onto being neurodiverse friendly, then we're missing the fact that we have to be catering for everybody. And so when that one child walks through the door, what is it that child needs? When that one child comes through the door, what is it that one child needs? And if those children are not coming through our door, why not? What are we not offering that means that they're never coming through our door? Have we actually made it impossible for them to be there in the first place? I always think when we think about hospitality, we start by saying, who's in our group? Who's not in our group? Why are they not here? What do we need to change? So there you go. There's a few bits of the afternoon. If you want me to send you the slides, I'm very happy to.